Hi, I'm Chuck Gray. I'm the Executive Director of Impact Corry, and we're here tonight to talk about the Rail and Trail Park in downtown Corry and to give folks more information about what local champions, what local volunteers have been working on in designing and thinking about the park, and in a deeper discussion about the concept of having a splash pad in downtown Corry. So I'm going to move us over to our pitch deck here so you can see what we're working on. First of all, this is the new logo for the Corry Rails and Trails Park. This was created in partnership with the Edinburgh Center for Branding and Strategic Communication. We're really pleased with this logo, and it's also great because it integrates into more logos we're developing for Corry. They also developed a new downtown Corry logo where the O becomes a gear as an homage to our industrial heritage. So a little background here. Our Corry Community Strategic Plan was adopted in April of 2021. And one of the 5 goals in that is to improve our green spaces and also to link them to one another. Because right now there's safety issues, people trying to get around to the green spaces, oftentimes walking along Route 6 or other congested areas. One prime example is a trail currently being built that comes along this old railroad grade. Families, students will be able to bike and hike along that route, and they're not right out in the streets. And as you can see right here, we're building a linkage over to Mead Park so you can get over to the trails in Mead Park and eventually link out of Mead Park over to Worth and back into the city. Essentially, the goal is to get folks in every community can get to surface streets, to get to trails, and also to connect with the Erie to Pittsburgh Trail, which already has about 6 or 7 miles going north, starting here along the Greenway Trail. And now that's going to come into the city of Corry and connect a new park in our downtown area, which is right here. This is Main Street down here. And this is the rail yard. Also, the idea is to have safe streets with amenities throughout the city of Corry that are also our trails, connecting to our recreational assets like North Hills Golf Course, and actually building a trail around the golf course so more folks can enjoy the beauty of that spot, as well as connecting over with the Corry Country Club. And the south side of our city is pretty bereft of green spaces and trails. So also building additional trails so they can come down and use the parks in the main part of the city. So this support lets us realize that, you know, one of the first places we're working is going to be down here in this area as far as improving or actually creating a park. This is actually going to be key for economic development, downtown apartments, retaining people who live here, having another beautiful space they can enjoy and play in, but also attracting new. This is how the plan looked for the downtown park at the close of our community strategic plan. And an urban planner on that team actually donated his time to work with us to develop this first model. You're looking at about $40,000 worth of his time that was just donated to Corry to make this project happen. We knew this was a strong beginning, but we wanted to involve the community more and continue to make it exactly what we wanted. So it was basically a grove of trees and beautiful green space with the Erie to Pittsburgh Trail flowing through here. Again, this side was kind of more commercial with a pub or diner here, food trucks being able to come on, restroom, showers, a stage, and then an alley of trees. This was a great plan, but we started really digging into what Corry wanted and listening to residents. And this is, I'll go back here. So just as an orientation, this is North Center Street. This is Main Street. This is what we call the east end of the park. And this is what we call the west end of the park because they're west and east of North Center. So first we're going to look at this section here, the drawings where we are with this park. So this is a more fully realized vision of this side of the railroad park. The railroad company is actually giving us an additional 10-foot leeway here. This will actually be the Erie to Pittsburgh Trail coming into Corry. And then the green spaces have added water, picnic areas, pollinator gardens, a gazebo that frames the big mural is behind this on this side of the street. Multi-purpose areas for seating and relaxing, bike racks, fountains for everyone from your water bottle to your canine friend, information about the trail and Corry, and a whole bunch of greenery to really beautify the area as well as dampen sound in our downtown. We were working with PennDOT and with also the railroad companies in this work. This is our plan right now. We are also doing a subsurface utility engineering report. So based on the findings of what's underneath the ground, some of these pieces might move a little bit or alter a little bit. Say we can't dig where we want water, maybe we'll mound the earth and the water will be at the level of the ground now. But we need that report to make our final decisions about where everything's going to be. But this is the goal right now. And the reason we needed to do that report is no one has accurate drawings of what's underneath the ground at our rail yard. There used to be numerous other rail lines coming into Corry, so no one knows what's under there. And just so point of reference, this is the northern set of tracks. This is the southern set of tracks. Have all the recording. So this is the east side of the park. Now I'm going to take you to the west side of the park. Oh no, so these are what Wendy was talking about, the anti-trespass guards. This is what they look like if you're walking down the street. This is a closer vision. And this is kind of how they'd be situated. Every time there's humans that can get into here, these would be added. And you can see here, this is the railroad companies require a 6-foot high fence. They need visibility as well. So you can see here, this is done really well. Now, granted, if you come down to the railroad right now, there are none of these safety precautions. So we're actually kicking it up a notch and making certain that people are protected.
One more thing, if I might jump in and add, is that we're looking at mounding the dirt and creating high points in a flat surface. So we bring in, dump truck load or whatever, and shape it to the form we want in the gardens, and that will help with the sound absorption. And then when we put the plants on there, that will be something that will at least take out some of the lower end sounds, and hopefully a larger than we anticipate.
Another safety addition is the fencing. We've met with PennDOT, we've met with the railroad companies. This is a decent facsimile of what it would look like, where you see the black lines. So the park would be separated from the railroad line by this fencing. This is actually the trail itself. Again, it's separated from the tracks by fencing. Then these will be lower walls that keep people from walking across plantings. But we have developed, this is actually an older drawing of it. We've developed many more ways into the park where people can come in without tromping over the beauty that's in the park. Out here where this orange and black is, this will be another fence, but we're going to be working with an artist. This is going to be almost like a story fence where it is close to the railroad intersection, like over here. It has to be the wrought iron so the engineers can see before they get to the intersection what's coming this way. But from 30 feet back from the intersection, the art fence will take over. This could be anything from a celebration of Corry's industrial past to fence that actually baffles sound. And literally later on, you'll see what I'm talking about, but they're making some pretty amazing surfaces now that you can build with to cut down the sound issues. Everything from moss walls to these recycled, basically shredded tires that are kind of look like linguine all together, and they just deaden the sound. They bounce off and they get stuck inside. Oops, why is that? Then the west end of the park. So again, now this is North Center and this is Main. This is kind of the party, big event, retail side of the park. Right now, this is a derelict old freight depot. This is potentially ice cream, food, beverage. This will be developed as a place to stop and hang out at the park and get fed. This is parking, and it's meant to mirror kind of the concept of the railroad tracks. Again, bike racks, sculptures, greenery, everything to make it a place where you want to hang out. Right now, this is the Blue Zone's office. It would either be kept as offices or a public use space. These are public restrooms, more eating areas, more parking, and then this great big lawn for people to come hang out. And this stage with a loading dock and parking. So imagine if there's concerts and things downtown, this green space, sorry, can actually be used for those purposes. So this was the goal of our design. And then people started talking about a splash pad. We were talking about putting it in the other end of the park, but it's not as large. And we also feel that end of the park, you know, there's not services down there. We're not going to plug in restrooms. We're not going to have places to eat. We're not going to have places where parents are happy hanging out at the same time their kids are. So we actually picked to add it here. Which cuts down on the green space, but as you can see, they're still pretty healthy sized areas. And again, this gives place for kids to play as well as to use the green space, as well as birthday parties, events, you know, night things, whatever, it's all here. So when a splash pad was first suggested by residents, we were skeptical. But our work starts with listening to the community. So basically, there was a bunch of concerns we had about locating a splash pad in a big, busy city center, by a train track, blah, 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 right? So we're going to go through our concerns one by one and show you what we found. So our first concern was placing a splash pad or interactive water feature in an active rail yard. What we found is it's been done safely not only with splash pads, but with live concert, brew clubs, and playgrounds. So literally, this is a rail yard, and it's called the rail yard. Here's the kids playing. The tracks are over here. There is no fencing, which I don't know how they get away with that. But this is a working park that people love. Here is the Santa Fe Rail Yard. These are live tracks. Again, no fencing. And this is where they hold their live concerts. This is another vision of this. So here's their stage, and literally here's a train coming through. And we started talking to people who use these or have these. They said they do a lot of train related things. Like, I guess in the Santa Fe Rail Yard, there's something that everybody shouts when the trains come through, because it's like the music stops, everything stops, and they just celebrate the train coming through. One that has a brew pub by a rail yard actually has drinks are free if you can get them in while the train is passing. So, and some of them do, like the one brew pub is actually train themed. It's just, so people play with it. But in seeing that we're working with the railroads and talking about fences and barriers and things that people cannot easily get over or in to harm themselves, we were very gratified to see that this is being done. And these rail yards they basically look like, you kind of think you're in a sketchy area a lot of the time. We're fortunate, our rail yard actually has some nice greenery, but still, it just looks like a deserted rail yard. So making it beautiful, making it feel like a public space, all of a sudden, when you come across Main Street, all these businesses over here that are really like Dahlia and the juice shop and everybody up the street, people are concerned about coming across that chasm. We feel that if the park becomes connective tissue. Both sides of the park are viable and people can hop back and forth. So that was our first concern, and we felt that it had been done well. And we are erring on the side of safety, and doing more than what most communities we found are doing to keep people from the tracks. Every time I touch an element of it, it doesn't advance. Then some of the splash pads near rail lines have actually adopted railroad theme for their parks. I'm not saying that's what we're doing, but it's like a celebration because a lot of kids actually do love trains. So it's kind of, they're saying, hey, let's celebrate it rather than fighting it. So just wanted to show you what some of the thinking has been. Then our second concern is a splash pad in the middle of a busy downtown. But then when we started researching it, actually, this is where they're being built because quality of life is what attracts businesses. It's what attracts jobs. And having an activated, busy downtown where there's stuff to do actually changes your community's view of itself. So these are two pictures of, obviously, this is in the middle of a very busy downtown with it looks like at least a 6-lane highway right by their splash pad area. This again, it looks like a smaller size city, but you can see the roads right here. And they have their splash pad lit at night. So it's actually a community gathering spot. Also, I put in a couple data points here. In creating this park, we are actually increasing property values. That does not mean anyone will be reassessed. That just means that if you ever go to sell your property to your children who want to live here too, the property values actually will go up. And this is a great thing for people investing in the area. And also for every dollar spent on creating parks like this, Americans for the Arts do an annual study. They're finding that $7 are returned to the local economy for every dollar spent. Right now, this project is probably in the $2 million range. So can you imagine how much money that means over the years being returned to Corry for the investment? Also in the idea of a busy downtown, I used to live in San Jose. This is the true center of San Jose. It's actually a divided highway that comes through town and splits around this park. And the actual splash pad is right down here. It's right by the street. And these are other views of the splash pad. So, and again, this is a case where there's no railings. There are flasher lights that you can activate to make crossing safer. But again, they're not, it's not confined. But I can tell you, this is pretty much what it looked like when I lived there. Now, about 10 years later, this place has grown up. There's actually a permanent installation here with year-round farmers markets and vendors, and everyone comes here. So it creates a meeting place. Now, our third concern was the noise. These are a whole bunch of different materials that have been used as sound deadening. Everything from this see-through glass that's actually sound deadening to cork external walls. And I mean, if you're seeing the variations here, imagine if part of the problem is not the park itself, it's that it's in a canyon, it's between hard surfaces. So when a loud noise goes through, it's not that it goes through, but it goes and bounces off the buildings and then echoes back in, and it just becomes very loud. So we're not going to change the mural that's on the east side of the street, but imagine if the other surrounding buildings, we could do a large mural with cork, or these are actually like wooden panels that look like metal that absorb sound. All the different things we could do to deaden that space so you're not hit by the sound of the traffic. This is actually, I love this. This is at Heathrow, and they can sculpt this to any shape. Now, we want to keep our fences so people can see through them. It's just safer for police and people in the park. But imagine if we had an art installation that was in the air that did this as well, that baffled the sound. There's lots of options we can do. And along with the landscaping and other practices. So we feel pretty good about this. It's always going to be a city street. But in New York, I pay a lot of money to have my dinner on the sidewalk by a busy New York City street. So we can try to control it, but things will, it is still what it is. Also, the other things for sound, again, as we already mentioned, the trees, bushes, and flowers are all absorptive. Actually, they did a study and they found out, they ranked all the trees by species of what absorbs the most sound. So we'll be looking at those. Thank you. As Wendy mentioned, there'll be rolling landscape in the park to help absorb sound and shield those inside the hills kind of built to keep the noise out. And we're also investigating if engine braking is or may be prohibited in the area. I don't know much about this, but one of our champions is super smart. And she said, it's a practice that they do with the large trucks that when they roll through town, it makes it much louder. Also an urban planner who did our community strategic plan suggested adding a median with plantings in one of the turn lanes on North Center Street. It would slow all traffic a little bit, but it would also dissuade the larger vehicles from just rolling around that corner and right up North Center Street. And in some cases, the actual speed that you're traveling through there impacts the noise. I'm not saying that's a done deal, but it's another option we're looking at. The fourth concern, the rail yard is kind of in a no man's land separating two halves of the downtown. Many of the buildings in the area need work and they look a little sketchy. Years of people trying to do more with less has left them needing a facelift. Impact Corry has already raised and spent over $145,000 in renovations to downtown properties. These are a few of the images of things that got done this summer. Each of these building owners works with artists to develop the treatment of their property in advance of doing it. Here's a drawing for one of the building owners about what their property is going to look like. Then those building owners have matched the funds that we've brought in, and actually local owners have invested over $200,000 of their own funds in making these improvements. So literally $345,000 has been expended in the new look to downtown that you're seeing with all these improvements. Right now, there are 25 buildings on the waiting list, just in the small core section of downtown, that are waiting for funds to redo their properties. So people are willing to do this work. They just needed some financial help, and we're bringing it. So everything's not going to materialize at once. Some parts of this, you're going to be like, well, maybe it's a little sketchy now, but we're planning this and we're getting money to help them. By the time we all meet in the middle, it should be a really beautiful place. Also, like I just said, so the splash pad won't be developed in isolation. The entire park will be beautiful and inviting. And I know it's tough to imagine. If you're not a 2D thinker, that aerial view of the park might be hard to imagine. But as soon as we finish the subsurface utilities report, that same urban planner who donated his time will be donating his time again. And he's going to make a 3D virtual walkthrough of the park in its final configuration. So people can literally, tool around the program and look from every vantage point and see what it's going to look like. I also want to do that for final placement of everything, because right now I think we're all seeing it, but when we go through the virtual walkthrough, it's going to point up maybe some things we want to make even better. And we will be sharing that out. Impact Corry champions are also working on designing street amenities, signage, and artwork to boost the beauty of downtown, the walkability of downtown, and the sense of welcome. So these are some of our guiding ideas. Every year from now on, our first one was this year, we have design competitions. So this year it was a competition about designing a bench with innovation. These were some of our images to inspire artists. Everything from, this is a piece that was created with students that's literally, they went into dumpsters at businesses and corporations and built this amazing horse pulling a globe, to this is an old tractor with literally stained glass in the side that lights up. These are fun projects that make you proud of where you are. This is a nice bench with actually solar powered, so you can sit and work on the bench. You can plug in your computer, you can charge your phone. That is where we're going for. So everything here, we're saying that innovation was the start of Corry, and innovation is going to be the rebirth of Corry. So as we build these things, we're looking to do this. So this plant, it's kind of like a seeded ring. These actually, we're looking at a couple different options, but they actually can do things where the metal going into the ground is connected to what I think it's called a piezo. So literally, as those would sway in the breeze, it would collect power down below the surface and light up areas of the bench. This one will be a glider that powers a gazebo that lights up. This actually is the cutest darn thing. This is probably going to end up in the splash pad, maybe you have to kind of separate ages. So the very young need a place that's just safe and quieter to play with water. The goal is that, yes, it could be a bench, but these tentacles coming out and further tentacles in the grass or the actual concrete area would spray water. So you could interact with this lovely little character. And to the side, these are just some inspirations from other communities. We will be developing downtown wayfinding signage that will be unique to Corry. It will celebrate the steampunk look we're going for and the innovation look we're going for. And then down here, this is a font cloud. We searched all over to look at fonts, and this is kind of what it came down to, that the group felt it expressed the feeling we were going for. So these fonts will actually be incorporated into this signage. So that shows you the plans are, it's not just a splash pad here all by itself. It's going to be surrounded by beauty and useful things. And this kind of investment brings more investment. Businesses know that where their people are happy, they want to exist. The high ed is working to create entrepreneur ecosystems, support services. So we're going to make our downtown a place where small business wants to grow. Now, the fifth concern is the new park large enough for a splash pad? And thank you, Kim Hawks, because math is not my friend. So this is kind of the area we're looking at. It's a 50 by 75 foot potential for the build out. That makes it about 3,750 square feet to build in. So we did some comparisons. Bayview Park, the Erie splash pad, is roughly 75 by 75 by 75. It's a triangle. So it has about 2,800 square feet with 20 water features. Burgess Park, the one down in Titusville, is about the same size, except their triangle's a little bigger. So they're at about 3,000 square feet. Now, Waldemere, of course, they're an amusement park. They're huge. They go big. They have 100 water features, 30 interactive water features and slides, and there are 9,500 square feet of space. So the Corry splash pad would be 34% larger than the Erie, 25% larger than the Titusville, and would be 60% smaller than Waldemere, which kind of hits in a sweet spot. We're attractive, but let me tell you this, the bigger you get and the more features you have, the more expensive it is to build, the more expensive it is to run. So we're trying to thread the needle between what's going to be attractive and useful to residents and going to draw people from a further area, and what we're going to be able to truly afford and upkeep. Which brings us to the sixth concern, cost and maintenance. We've met with Anna Franz. She's responsible for Bayview Park. We've learned the cost of that park, both in building it and maintaining it. From this, a little over 600,000, we've learned that a splash pad is not out of reach for Corry. We've researched splash pad makers and their cost and offerings. And there's many variables that impact the cost and maintenance of the park. So does your splash pad use recycled water or fresh water? How many features? How many, the number of above ground, like those cute little things that stick out that the kids interact with, those break more than in ground. So you're going to have continued costs. What are your hours of operation? What's your upkeep? All of those costs will be considered as we plan this splash pad. But as I said, we're at an earlier stage with this idea than the rest of the park. So we're not going to throw a number at it until we make the decisions of what we want. And until we know what we want, we can't price it. So if we aim a little high and find out it's just too much, then we can cut back. But I'd rather we start with what we really want. We're also working to develop an endowment plan for the whole park's upkeep. Because if you saw those beautiful green spaces, that's just not putting the mower in there. That's someone who actually knows what they're doing. So we are looking to guarantee that long-term. And we're also committing our Erie Gives funds this year to support the park's creation and maintenance. So, that's money that we can use for anything. And we're saying our community wants this park. We're going to leave it to them to invest in their park at a time when Erie Community Foundation and Corry Community Foundation actually matches donations. And Impact Corry is also developing income streams to benefit the park. Some other places, they've said, okay, we had a brew pub and the owner of the brew pub, sorry, my dogs are playing. Hey guys, actually created an ale that is in honor of the park, and proceeds from the purchase of that ale go to the maintenance of the park. We want the splash pad to be free, but there could be hours of operation where it's rented for special events and parties. So, and then one place, a thing I just saw recently is they committed to food trucks in the area, and everybody who's an entrepreneur who comes into your park contributes back to the upkeep of your park, because making that park beautiful is what makes their business good. And one of our champions just sent me this morning a packet of options for funding long-term. It's really great what she put together, and I'm trying to go through quickly, but we'll share if time permits by the end of this tonight. And seventh concern, why not somewhere else? Why not in the middle of a great big green space? Why not someplace where we don't have to talk about things like we're concerned about railroads and noise? The reason why is that when we bring these hubs of activity into a city center, people are more willing to invest in that city center. It brings people to unused parcels, and they are more likely to shop there. They're more likely to consider living there. They're more likely to, one of the things we want to do is develop really nice mixed use apartments downtown. They're more willing to live downtown if this is their backyard. So all these reasons, this park will bring economic development in a way that, say we put it out in a great big green space by the soccer fields, it's going to do nothing for our downtown economic development. Also, so we need to draw activity, business, recreation, and beauty to our retail downtown. In this park, I don't know if anyone really gets it yet, how big of a deal it is where Corry is located on the Erie to Pittsburgh Trail. We have about the 6 or 7 miles going north to Clymer, but when this connects the whole way from Erie to Pittsburgh, I can't remember the stat, but like for every mile of consecutive trail you have, you pull from a wider range of people coming to your area to use that. So the fact that we are on that route, not just the north-south, but the Erie County is investigating doing another route that would literally connect from Lake Erie down through the southern part of the rural part of the county through Union City, and it would end in Corry right at this park. So we're going to have an influx of people. We need something to hold them here, because if it's just a trail that goes through the center of town, there is no reason for them to get off their bike, get off their snowmobile, get off their horse, get off their feet, and enjoy what's here. Again, I mentioned earlier that Pennsylvania has a goal that every neighborhood is within a 10-minute walk of recreation and trails. As I mentioned, the hill, it's a largely residential hill up South Center Street. That is one area, it's the only area locally that DCNR and the Commonwealth has identified as lacking access to recreation spaces and trails. So by building this park, and we're also building trails up into that neighborhood, we're actually serving that neighborhood in a way they don't get served currently. And family recreation options are essential to attract and maintain residents in the area. Everyone getting in the car and going everywhere else to get their fun, it's going to happen no matter what. We're a small city, but the more you can have what you want here, the more likely you are to say, you know, I really like it where I am. And again, that has the potential of drawing more people to mixed use dwellings downtown. Our eighth concern, I can't remember who said it, but someone looked at me and said, we have winter 9 months out of the year. Why are you investing in a splash pad? So advancements in splash pad have actually been to the point where you could have its splash pad in the good weather. It's a hockey or skating rink in the cold weather. This is really important for Corry. So now let's go back 1 second to, so now all of a sudden this 50 by 75 foot area, now imagine that as well as a skating rink in the winter. Again, you're getting the draw downtown and you're giving people a chance to do fun things right where they live. So this can be done with either, this actually is a picture of fake ice. And this one's, I think this one's a fake ice as well. This one's real. Some places are doing it with this fake ice where you could actually put a pavilion over it to keep the bulk of the snow off of it, or you can maintain it. I guess the big downside on the, if it can be called a big downside, the artificial ice, you have to sharpen your skates more and it's a little slower. But personally, as the woman who gets on skates and falls every 2 seconds, I'm looking forward to those two things. So this really, in my opinion, put it over the top for me. Like, it's not just an investment for a few months out of the year that lets everybody in the community play. Now it's year-round play. And oh, I should have like built that up. That one's my favorite. And with the fact that all season, what about all hour? Like, this is great to play in these spaces during the day, but what happens at night? More and more, they're suggesting integrating your splash pads, and I'm actually calling it an interactive water feature or fountain. You can play in a fountain, but when you're not playing in a fountain, it's still beautiful. So imagine people driving through North Center Street or along Main in those warm months and seeing displays in the middle of Corry. This sends a clear message that we are the community to be in. This is, I think, a transformative potential moment. Now, I think this is Bellagio, so we're not going to go that big. But even our size communities can afford these amazing lights in a regular splash pad and create, these, by the way, after researching them a bit, they're all LED and there can be light changing. So it's not just that it comes up blue. We could actually have lighting water displays. So now imagine that space. Personally, I want to rent that space to have a party at night just to bring all my friends and play in this cool area. So I think it becomes a lot more serving to the needs of the community. Oh, and now my battery on my computer's dying. I planned really well. Okay, so those were our concerns, and I felt like as if the research that's been done so far is telling me it's worth investigating further with our local folks. So now I'm just going to give you a little information about splash pads, and we'll open it up for questions and comments. So the first splash pads in the United States, you got it, fire hydrants. I love that. We're just taking them upscale. What makes a splash pad? You can play, it doesn't require a lifeguard. There's interactive features. It's a decking that's safe to move around on, and clean water. These are a couple historic splash pads in the United States that are still around and functioning. So this is the Frog Pond in Boston in 1970. Here's the same place in 2018. So kids still get hot, they still need to play, and parents love sitting along the periphery, letting them get worn out. Then Keller Fountain, I love this. I wish we had an even bigger downtown. This is 1970. And this one kills me. I mean, look at people up on top of the waterfall. That's nuts. But now look at it, 2018, when this study was done. It's still in use. People still love it. It's still a source of recreation and coolness. And it's still a place where anyone can come and enjoy themselves and recreate. And even the shyest kids can't stay away from it. So here are some images of splash pads just around the US that we started researching just to get ideas. Some additional ones. This is fun with like these chairs built in. Again, some more interactive night features. And kind of really cool art install with it. But they double and just make a community space look beautiful as well as being inviting. So tonight's meeting, we wanted to share what we found so far, and we wanted to invite our neighbors to step up and be part of this process and bring your ideas and your thoughts to the table. Right now, this water features / ice rink is a concept. It's a desire and an inspiration. We need to vet it out more thoroughly to know where we're going with it. Over the next months, champions will work to problem solve, seek funding, and ultimately make it awesome. So we'd like to invite you to bring your ideas and expertise to the table and get involved.